Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Hey, Solomon. Y'all feel free if you have any questions as we before everybody gets started. You're welcome to ask them. Hope y'all are enjoying these gorgeous fall temperatures.
I actually have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was looking at the daily rights for this week, like looking at the calendar, and I was looking at today's daily right, and it said something about, I don't know if I've just missed something or like, I don't know about the formatting thing. Like we're supposed to pick a format, and like I don't
Yes.
know what the formats are, so I'm kind of confused.
So Emma Grace, so if you have you watched all of the class videos on the blog?
Yes, ma'am.
So in the video where I talk about the final project, what I mean when I say form is just like what you want to make for your final project. So like what you want to do it about. Do you want to write a review? Do you want to write an essay, or do you want to make a podcast, or do you want to do something else? Right? So it's just the form that your final project is going to take.
Oh, okay. So I saw those options on the like sheet, the assignment sheet for this project. And I didn't know if that was because it didn't say formatting specifically. So I didn't know if that was like the formatting or if it was something else. So thank you for clarifying that for me.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to play with the different styles. A lot of students end up doing podcasts in this assignment or have before, because so many of the reviews you guys are listening to are in podcast form. So you guys could actually create one like that as well. But yeah, Ms. Black went over those details, and they're in the assignment sheet. But this is a great time to talk about, what you might want to use for those. Like podcasts, I tend to tell students if they want to create a podcast to use Anchor. It's an app that you can download that's real simple to use. But there's so many different apps you could use. So we're not going to hold you to a certain kind of program. It's just sort of however you want to do the assignment.
Yes, and I think there's on the calendar, I think there's a day where I ask you all to just like download Anchor if you can and just like mess around with it to see if you like it. So you're welcome to do that. But if you know that you like really don't want to make a podcast, then you don't have to do that. If you like are dedicated to like doing the written review, or if you like are sure that you want to just do a traditional essay, then that's also fine. Or if you have a different idea, like if you want to make like a YouTube video or something, or a short film, like far.
I think she's frozen.
Yeah, Miss Black, I think you're frozen. You might have to get off and check back in.
Or be it for me to keep you from doing that.
Oh, there you are.
Did I just freeze for everybody?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. The internet in my apartment has just been bad this week. Like I don't know what has happened, but it's difficult. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure it's just because everyone's, it's got to be a strain having everybody on it. But don't worry, if you freeze up, you can tag me in.
Okay. We've got two networks, but I don't know if I should like try to get on the other one, because that other one's been messed up too. So
I can hear you fine now. We'll just see how it goes.
Can I ask another question about the project? I'm sorry.
No worries.
And I also just got out of the shower, so I look bad. But if we do a podcast, is there some kind of like, I don't want to say template because that's not what the word is, but like something that we can kind of follow to like know how to, because we've listened to all the podcasts, in class, but they're all different, So I don't know how like how you're supposed to go about a podcast, because that kind of seems like a cool idea, but I don't
Yeah,
really.
so what I'd say about that is that I'm not going to expect you to, if you choose to do a podcast, I'm not going to expect you to like exactly mimic one of the podcasts. But what you'll want to do, since we've listened to them all in class already, is you'll want to like kind of think about the elements of each of them and think about like, okay, what's working? How is it working? Do I want to do an intro? Do I want to say like, hi, I'm Emma Grace Bronson and welcome to my podcast? Do I want to like have a break for ads just for like humor? Do I want to organize it in a certain way? So you could just like copy the Anthropocene reviewed exactly, and I would not fault you for that, and that'd be fine. Or you could copy the Taylor Swift folklore review that we listened to on the first day exactly, and that would be perfectly fine. But if you felt comfortable doing it, and if you wanted to, you could like take factors from each of those and put them together to make something totally new, and that would be awesome.
So it could be like we can do like something fun with it. We can kind of make it fun and like.
I want it to be fun. If you
Okay.
if you think that you can have fun with it, then I implore you to do so. I want you to do what will be fun and exciting to you.
Yes. I'll follow it up too with, as long as you still have to have a claim about what you think about that podcast, and you have to have, or sorry, that artifact, whatever you're reviewing, and you got to have evidence from that artifact. So when you're listening to all these, like the one on the Taylor Swift album, they have embedded those clips from her songs right into, as they're reviewing it, we're hearing her music, we're hearing their breakdown of it. So there is still that analytical element of it. That you'll have to, it can't just be like, I really like Lizzo, she's fun. You have to have that evidence too. But what I liked about the Taylor Swift one was how they brought in, there were a couple of people. It'd be interesting to bring in friends of yours, like someone who really likes an artist and someone who really dislikes that artist, and they're talking about that song. And you're kind of leading them through. There's all kinds of things that you could do with it.
Or let me just say, if some of y'all know each other, or even if you don't know each other, and you decide you want to do a group project because you'd rather like have each other, that's also fine by me. You'll all just get graded basically the same way. You won't get the same grade as each other. I just mean the same way as if you did independent projects. And I'll be able to tell, right, who did the work and who didn't, if it comes down to that. But if you want to do a group project among this class, or even with somebody, if you have a friend in one of our other sections this semester, welcome to do a group project with them. I think that would be pretty neat. So you can the reason I want it to be fun, right? And we'll talk about this. We're going to talk about this kind of in class today in my presentation. But the reason that you're doing this project is to get to know how to do this, but it's easier to get to know how to do something if it's fun for you. So I don't want it to just be like a blow off assignment, right? I'm not taking this seriously, but I think it's easier to take something seriously sometimes if you like doing it, if you enjoy doing it. So if you can think of a way to do this project that you will enjoy doing more than just like a traditional essay or even a written review, you should really do that, because it'll help you understand the material more.
Wait, Miss Black, so there's like no real specific format for the podcast?
Yeah, and again, just because we've had some new people come in, and I talked about this a little bit in one of the videos from last week, and we'll talk about the final project a bit more later, but the daily write today, and we'll talk about it when we come upon the daily write. But the final project, you can do a number of things. You can do a traditional essay, you can do a written review, you can do a podcast, or if you have a different idea, you can talk to me about that if you're interested. Let me just go ahead and get the presentation up, and we can talk about this when we get to the daily write, because we're already a few minutes in. Oh, Miss Buckley, can you enable screen sharing?
Sorry about that. It should work now.
No worries.
I've said it multiple times as default, but it does that every time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right, so same opening slide as always. Just keep that information in mind. So we're gonna do roll call, and you're gonna tell me what your favorite season is. It is come upon that time, the change of the seasons, and people who like fall are really excited, and people who don't like fall or don't like winter are not very excited at all. But so be very mindful of it. Let's see. So I've gotten some questions. Me and Ms. B have gotten some questions from people about like, and Ms. B like made a couple of videos about this weekend, and I don't want to like hammer it in too hard, but I do want to talk about this because I think it's important. About like, what is the point of this class? What is the point of these assignments that we're doing? We've gotten some people who've been curious about the purpose of particular assignments, or who've expressed frustration about like, I just don't see why we're doing any of this. And that's fine. I think that's totally reasonable. But I wanted to go over that so that we all know, so that we're all on the same page, right? So I know that we keep saying this phrase, but it's true. And I'm going to say it again. This whole entire class is meant to get you paying attention and thinking critically. If you ever wonder what the purpose of an assignment is, why we've given you an assignment, why you're doing it, why you should care, that's it, baby. Like that's all. We just want you to pay attention to your surroundings and to your thoughts and the way that you think and the way that other people think. And we want you to think about that. This is a very thinking intensive class. It's a thinking class and a writing class. It's writing 101. But so we want you, and so you've just come out of high school, right? And when you're in high school, usually the objective is your teacher's going to give you some information, and then you're going to learn that information, and then you're going to regurgitate it back out, and your teacher's going to be like, ooh, good job, you remembered my information. And that is really, really not what we are asking you to do here. And that is scary and frustrating and confusing, right? Because you may have never done the thing that we are asking you to do. And it's okay if you're frustrated by that. It's okay if you're scared or confused about it, because we know that. And because we are here to teach you how to do it. Again, it's writing 101. It is the most fundamental class to learn how to do this. So we are here to teach you, but you have to work with us. You can't be resistant to it. Because if you're resistant and if you're surly and if you are like, well, I don't care about this, I don't care to learn it, then you're not going to learn anything. And then in 5 years, you're going to be like, well, I didn't learn anything in that class. And it's going to be because you didn't try to learn anything because you didn't want to. And you might not even notice that you're doing that. Because I've been in classes before where it like wasn't necessarily my field. And I've been like, well, I don't see why I have to know this. But then later I was like, oh, I'm kind of really glad that I learned that. Because usually when you learn something that you don't know, it just makes you smarter. It doesn't hurt you. It can rarely hurt you to learn a new thing that you didn't know before. Sometimes, so this particular bullet point, sometimes people don't like the same things as you, and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, that is a valuable lesson to learn. So you are going to encounter people in the world who don't like the stuff that you like. And I'm not talking just like who don't like the same foods as you. I'm talking like people are going to meet you and think that the way that you live is so wild and foreign to them that they can't even imagine living like you. And you might be like, well, but I'm normal. Like I live a normal kind of life. I live the normal average kind of life. And that's just simply not true. Nobody lives the average normal kind of life. Nobody likes all the right things and the normal things, because there are no right things or normal things to like. There are more mainstream things to like, but there's really no normal. So if you're listening to, for instance, the John Green podcast about prom, and you're feeling kind of like resistant to that, you're feeling like a little bit like offended. You're like, well, I didn't even know there were people who felt like this. I guarantee there's somebody in your high school who didn't go to prom, or who did go to prom and felt real bad about it. But they didn't have the kind of language that John Green has now as like an adult man to talk about why they felt like that. And this could have been a gay kid who didn't feel comfortable coming to prom with his boyfriend, or it could have been somebody who didn't have the money to buy a prom dress. Could have been like a number of reasons, but I guarantee there was at least one kid, and maybe you were that kid who didn't feel comfortable going to prom, even if it was just like, well, I don't like the kinds of people who go to prom. And if you're the kind of person who goes to prom, and I was, then that can feel a little weird inside. You're like, well, are you saying that people who like prom are bad people? No, but different people like different things for different reasons. And you just kind of got to be aware of those reasons. Even if I like prom, after listening to the podcast, I can be like, oh, I see why somebody else might not like prom. That doesn't mean that prom shouldn't exist. That means that we should think a little bit more about how maybe it could be more inclusive or less weird for certain kinds of people. So just because something you like is flawed doesn't mean that you can't like it. And becoming aware of those flaws is good for you. It makes your worldview bigger and more comprehensive, and it helps you come up with solutions to those kinds of problems. And I'll bring up again here, some people were frustrated with the pitchfork assignment, which I'm actually like, I'm glad that some people were, because they were like, well, the music that I like wasn't available on Pitchfork. I knew that was going to happen. I expected that, because Pitchfork is a site on which there is very much music coverage. It is not comprehensive. It has a bias. It has a particular aesthetic. And so if you like music that doesn't fit into that aesthetic, you're not going to find it on there. Or if you do find it on there, it may be reviewed in a way that you don't agree with, which is why I had you do that assignment, where you looked at the review and you saw, like, does this person agree with me or not? And some of you were very surprised to find that the albums that you loved got horrible reviews. And so I wasn't asking you to like consider like that the music that you like is actually bad. I'm asking you to learn how to defend your position against someone who really does not agree with you. And that's going to be a really useful skill to learn in your life. And so again, back to this idea, in my entire worldview, like I'm a grad student, right? Like I came back to college on purpose. But in my estimation, it is usually better to know more things than to know less things. Learning is good. I know sometimes it feels bad. When you learn something that challenges your beliefs or your worldviews, or makes you uncomfortable, like you're like, well, you can be like, I don't even want to be here. Like, I don't want to learn this. This confuses me. This offends me. I don't like it. But that's good. That means that you're learning, and that means that you're becoming a more full person. Even if you get taught something that you don't agree with, being asked to consider that and to think that over and turn it over in your brain is always going to make you smarter, is always going to make you better. And that's what college is for, right? So, and if you watch Ms. B's videos, she talks about how like you're learning skills that are going to serve you for the rest of your time in college, in academia. Well, I'm here to tell you, I don't think Ms. B is wrong by any means, but I'm here to tell you it's not just academia. These are skills that are going to serve you for the rest of your life. Every day for the rest of your life, you will have to analyze. It will be important and necessary. And you're already doing it. When you get a text, you analyze it, even if you aren't conscious of that, especially if it's from your crush, if it's from somebody that you like. You are poring over that text. You are doing a close reading, trying to figure out exactly what it means, the connotations of the words, why did he use that smiley face like that? You are analyzing. You analyze a movie. Every time you see one and you talk about it with your friends, that's analyzing. And this one is especially important, and I meant to announce this at the beginning of class, but today is the last day to register to vote in Mississippi and several other states, including Arkansas. So if you're from Mississippi, or if you're from one of those other states, you need to look it up. You really should be registered to vote. Even if you don't feel comfortable voting in this election, I think you should still go ahead and register to vote, first of all. Second of all, I think that you should really, really consider voting in this election. Because most of you are voting age, or at least you're real close to it. You are analyzing your candidate's beliefs when you decide who to vote for. For the rest of your life, as long as government in its current form exists, when you're voting, that's what you're doing. You are analyzing. You are saying, like, what are my values? What are their values? How can we compare? You're doing the Unit 1 reflection assignment between you and a candidate. So you have to be able to think critically. Like, you just have to graduate college, which you're in college, so you're going to have to do it. If you want to finish college, you may not want to, and that's fine. But if you want to graduate college, you gotta think critically. If you want to start a career in basically any field, even fields that seem mostly like they involve manual labor, like if you want to be a plumber, that's fine. That's a great vocation. I really admire plumbers. They also have to think critically. Like, you can't escape it. By being a person, you got to think critically. To be a successful member of human society, you've got to be able to use your brain. And you may meet people who you are like, how did you get through life not thinking critically? How did you come to be so successful in your life when it seems like you don't think very critically very much of the time? And to that, I'll say that those people's lives aren't very full. Those people probably aren't very happy. And if they are, it's because they don't really think about it. They just don't think about anything. So they may be happy, but their lives are less full. So I'm just here to say, in order to live a human life as you were meant to live it on this planet, you got to be able to think critically. It's not just about school. And also, to answer one more concern, so I would never assign you any work that I didn't want to grade. I'm not going to do that because I don't have time for that. I know I introduced myself as a grad student on the first day of class. I know some of y'all probably don't know what that means. That means that I'm a full-time student. I am in college again with extra work, and also I teach you guys. So, and I'm not complaining about that, but what I am saying is that I have double the work that y'all do. So I would not give myself extra work by giving you busy work assignments. I simply would not do it. I don't have time for that. I'm only assigning you work that I think will be useful to you, whether that's right now or whether that's, again, like 10 years down the line when you think critically about something and then you're like, oh, I just realized that assignment that I did in college 10 years ago was useful to me. And again, that just kind of happens sometimes. That's the thing about learning in the humanities, is the information is not always immediately useful to you in apparent ways. It will sometimes take a while for it to kick in. It'll sometimes take a while for you to understand it, to get it, to use it. And that's okay. You might not even notice until years from now, but someday it will be useful and you're going to be glad that you learned how to do it. So with that being said, now that you know how important this all is to you and to me, I want you to think about your final Unit 2 project, and I want you to think about what kind of form you want to use. So what that means, and we talked about this a little bit already for the people who've been in the chat the whole time, but so that means what kind of form, what are you thinking about writing about? Do you want to write a traditional essay, a written review? Do you want to make a podcast? Do you want to make a video? What are you planning to do? So do a little bit of brainstorming, and I'll give you about 5 minutes to do that.
When you say form, do you mean like podcast?
Yes, so I do mean podcast, written review, traditional essay.
Okay.
That's the kind of form that it's taking. Like, that's
Okay.
the container that it comes in.
Okay.
But we're allowed to like review like whatever kind of media we want to, right?
You're allowed to review whatever kind of media you want, or if you want to review something that's not media, that's also fine, but you should probably come to me and talk a little bit about it first so we can figure out quite what to do. But if you want to do media, you're pretty much free to do anything: book, movie, TV show, music, anything.
All right, thank you.
Okay, start wrapping up. Does anybody want to share? Since y'all will be like posting your pitches on the blog this week, I won't make anybody share if you don't want to, but if anybody's really excited about what they plan to do and they want to talk about it, this is a good opportunity to do so.
I actually have a question.
Oh yeah, this is good for questions too. Yeah, Grace.
I keep asking questions. I feel so annoying.
No, this is good.
So I was wondering, so we're supposed to review like an artist or an album or whatever, something like that. Are we able to do like, not like an object, but like, you know how we did that last assignment on Blackboard that was like not a person or place, but like a something?
A something, yes, a concept or like a something like that. Yeah.
That as our review?
Yes, absolutely. So if you really enjoyed the Anthropocene reviewed assignment and you want to expand on that, if you want to make that review bigger for your final project, or if you had a different idea and you want to do that instead, that's totally fine. Come talk to me about it to make sure that it's the right choice for this assignment, just because like it falls a little bit outside the boundaries of a traditional review. So just come talk to me about it. But chances are I'm going to say yes, because I think that's really neat, and we've done it in class, so there's already precedent for it.
Can I stay after class?
We only have about 10 minutes until our next class starts, but if you can talk about it in 10 minutes, then yes.
It's like super quick, yeah.
Okay, good. Yes. See you then. All right. Does anybody else have a question or want to say what they want to do?
I'm just going to jump in real quick. Guys, if you want to see a few student samples, I've gotten some questions privately in the chat. That's why I'm sharing this. But I've put 2 in the chat. One is a written review from a former student. She did a review of a podcast, The Ghost of Bobby Dunbar, which was a This American Life episode. And then the second one is a this student reviewed, he's actually doing a podcast of he's reviewing a podcast by creating a podcast, if that makes sense. And it's a really funny one. But those could give you some examples. People keep asking about the written review, and I know it seems like that would be like in a Word document or something. That's not the case. The written reviews would be published online, almost like the NPR reviews that you've been reading. And they would have embedded information in them. And I know we're going to go over some of that stuff later, but if you want to go ahead and grab those samples, you can do it.
Yes, so these are great examples. Thank you, Ms. B. And we'll talk about it later too. And it says on the assignment sheet for the project, right? Like you might want to like make your own website, your own free website on Wix. You might want to host it there. So we'll talk about this later. But yes, so your review, and that's you read the Joker reviews, right? So those are also good examples to look to on how to do like a movie review, if that's the kind of thing that you're interested in doing. So there are plenty of examples. That's why I've given you so many reviews and stuff to read and to listen to, right? So that you can like get a sense of like the different kinds of reviews there are. And then you can just kind of do whatever you want as long as you think it qualifies as a review. And as long as you're doing the analytic work that we're asking you to do on the assignment sheet, then you are free to do as you choose. Great. I guess we will move on. So what to do this week? So I did get a little bit off on the calendar last week. I apologize for that, but all it ended up doing is giving you some extra time to do some work. So I think it worked in your favor actually. But so what you're going to do this week, I'm back on track, is I'm going to make a post tonight on the class blog on which you will comment your project pitch by Wednesday at midnight. And the assignment for the project pitch is on the calendar as always. By Friday, you have a RET lab due. So make sure you do the analysis RET lab by Friday. And then also by Friday, you're going to read the short story Cat Person in the New Yorker. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it. It's a little bit long, but it's easy to read. And I think that you'll think it's really interesting. And then you're going to read the essay, the think piece from Vox that is about the short story. So you're going to read a short story and then a review of the short story, basically. And then you're going to respond to the prompt that's on the calendar. And I'm going to make that post on Wednesday, and then you'll have until Friday to complete that assignment. So does anybody have any questions about that?
So we must come up with our decided pitch by Wednesday at midnight.
Yes, and it's early enough that if you post your pitch and then you kind of decide you want to do something a little different, like that's totally fine. It doesn't have to be totally final. That's why it's a pitch, right? Like you're pitching it like, hey, here's my idea. I think this is what I want to do. That's fine with me. But you need to have come up with an idea by then. Great. Anybody else?
Could I just comment real quickly? Because some folks are going to want to review older artifacts. I already had a student say I might review Friends. Okay, I love the older artifacts. And Ellie, you went over this last week. I think you talked about, take something old and talk about why it matters now. But y'all don't forget about Kairos when you choose these artifacts. So if you're going to talk about Friends, why do we need Friends in 2020? Right? So why does the show matter now? So just keep that in mind if you're making those decisions and you choose an older artifact.
Yes, good. Thank you, Ms. B. That's a good point. Yes, keep your Kairos in mind. That's why we learned about all that. Make sure that if you're doing something old, that you explain like looking at Friends in 2020, like you could do that kind of thing. Or you could just do, here's a review of Friends, and in the last paragraph you talk about like, and here's why it matters. Let's see. Okay, things to keep in mind. I'm excited for this slide. I'm kind of worried about this slide. We just have a few minutes left. So something that I noticed in y'all's in y'all's reviews, especially your pitchfork reviews, that I thought was very interesting. And I've noticed this with my students before. And I had professors tell me this in college. And I think it's important to keep in mind, there is no inherent value in relatability. So you might not know what that means. So if somebody asks you why you like something and you say, well, it's so relatable, that is totally meaningless. And you might be like what? That's the only way I talk about media. That's the only way I know how to talk about media. And I know that. And I understand that. I think it's going to be an interesting experiment. I'm going to ask you in your final reviews to not use the word relatable at all. Do not dare to put the word relatable in your assignment. I'm not going to like give you an F if you do, but I'm just saying, like, try so hard not to use the word relatable in your final review, because if you can't use the word relatable, then it will force you to come up. It will force you to say what you're actually trying to say, because the word relatable can mean so many different things. It means something different to everybody who says it, and it means something different every time you use it. So not using the word relatable will force you to say what you actually mean, and also to consider that just because something is relatable to you doesn't necessarily mean that it's better. So if you see yourself in a piece of media, that doesn't mean that everybody sees themselves in that media. So how could it be better for being relatable if it's not relatable to everybody? Or sometimes students will do this thing where they're like, well, even though this seemed very, like it wouldn't, even though it seemed like I wouldn't have anything in common with this, I still found it relatable. Well, in that case, it's like, well, if it's like a book about somebody who's not like you, but you're like, but I still found it relatable, I'm not sure what purpose like saying it's relatable is serving exactly. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that relatability is a concept that is very vague and nebulous. And if you try to avoid that concept, if you try to avoid that word, what will happen is your argument is immediately going to become tighter and more interesting, and you're going to have to say what you actually mean. Like when you say relatable, do you mean I see myself in this? Do you mean this seems universal to the human experience? Do you just mean I like this? Like you're going to have to come up with the thing that you're actually trying to say, instead of relying on this word relatable that it's not doing exactly what you think it's doing when you use it. And I'm guilty of this too, right? But for this assignment, I'm gonna make a ground rule. Let's not use the word relatable. Okay. But I do want to say, on the whole, your Pitchfork reviews and your Anthropocene reviews were awesome. They were so good, guys. I've responded to your Pitchfork reviews, and I haven't responded to your Anthropocene reviewed assignments yet. But on the whole, they were really good. Like, this is so exciting, you guys. I see the energy, and I want you to keep that energy, because your final projects are going to be so good if you keep on this path. Now, everybody has room for improvement. I have room for improvement. There are things that everybody can hone, and that's why we keep doing it. That's why we've done it so many times, and we're going to do it so many more times. You're honing, you're refining. But I want you to keep this energy. I want you to write about things that matter to you, not necessarily the things that you like or that you find relatable, but when things matter to you, like when you're defending something against somebody who doesn't like it, when you care, that makes your writing good, because you say what you mean when you care, because it matters. It matters to you, so you say it right. And that's what writing is all about, is saying what you mean to have an effect. That's all that it is. So it's better when it matters. And that's why I've given you all these assignments. That's why I'm giving you so much choice and freedom. I want it to matter to you. I want it so bad to matter to you, because it's going to be good if it does. All right. So do we have any questions about any of this? We have a few minutes left to take questions.
I just want to jump in here. I love this. No, don't use the word relatable. You're so right. This is going to be, it'll make the arguments much more interesting. And guys, if you're struggling with like, well, how do I not use this word? I mean, the whole point is that it's relatable to me is because I want to write about it. Think about problems, like think about what you love. Like right now, if I were writing this review, the show that I'm watching like crazy right now is Woke on Hulu or Yellowstone. I'm real into Yellowstone. That's because somebody in this class told me about it. And I would love to write about it in context of the power figures right now in this country and all of that. But that doesn't mean, just because I love a show, that doesn't mean it doesn't have problems. So I'm gonna go back to Friends real quick. Y'all, Friends was a really white show. It was real white, okay? And so you might talk about inclusivity in Friends. You know, would Friends be as popular today, in a sense, or would people be more critical of it today because it really was not super inclusive, right? So when in doubt, look for what you love and what you want to write about. Look at what problems may be associated with that work. And that could give you some interesting things to say and some interesting things to push back on too in your review.
Yes, there are always, even if you love something so much, nothing is perfect. There are always problems. There are always problems to be solved and addressed. And it's going to be hard, right? Like if you really love something, it's always hard to talk about the problems with it. And it's hard to strike that balance because then you get into this mode where you cannot stop seeing it, right? Like when you notice a problem in something, you're like, well, I hate it now and I only want to talk about the problem. You don't have to do that. You don't have to hate the thing that you love just because you noticed something is wrong with it or problematic about it, or there's something that like concerns you about it. You can hold both those things in your head. You can love something very much and also be like, but there is a problem with it, and it is important to talk about that problem, because it's always important to talk about the problem, because again, there's always room for improvement. And that's what reviews are for, is to say like, here's the thing that I love, here's maybe a problem with it, but here's another thing that's good about it, and you strike that balance. Okay, any questions about that? All right, yes, I had this, again, I had this concept of relatability being a word that wasn't allowed in the classroom in a poetry workshop when I was a junior in college, these many years ago. And she, at the beginning of class, my professor told us, she was like, when you read somebody else's poem and you workshop it by saying like, I liked it, it was so relatable, what you're doing is you're telling that person like, I have absorbed your experience. Your work only matters in how it relates to me. I am the center of the world, and what matters is how other stuff relates to me. And I think that is a normal human way of viewing the world. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I think that's totally normal and natural for humans. But what we're trying to do in this class is kind of like get out of our normal thinking patterns and try to like see things from other people's perspectives, kind of like, again, think critically about this stuff. So what matters for the purposes of these reviews is not how media relates to you or how you relate to media, but what you think it's doing in the world at all. I do see a question in the chat. Where is the critical review planning sheet? So that is on Blackboard. It should be located in the same place as the assignment sheet, the critical review sheet. And again, I went over that in the video, and that's not something that you're going to have to turn in, but it's just like you're going to answer these questions, like what is the kairos of this? Like what are the appeals that are involved in it? You're just going to answer those questions for yourself to serve yourself so that you can work on this project better. Yes, and Ms. B has put it in the chat.
Yeah, I just dropped the planning sheet in there too, but these are both on Blackboard as well. Y'all don't forget, you can go into Unit 2 in Blackboard, see both of these documents and the calendar if you need a new copy of it.
Yes, all right, so we got 2 minutes left. Any questions? All right, then I will let y'all go 2 minutes early. If somebody wants to stay after and talk to us, then you are welcome to do so. And I hope you have a good week.
Thank you, Miss Beck. Thank you, Miss Buckley.
Thank you.
See y'all.
Y'all have a great week. Check in with
As
Thank you
well.
too.